name is Craig Churchill. I'm the head of the social finance program at the International Labour Organization, where we look at how the financial sector, banks, MFIs, insurers, investors can contribute to the ILO's agenda of promoting decent work. Often MFIs are focusing to some extent on job creation, trying to provide small loans to micro-enterprises to help those businesses to grow and create jobs. And that doesn't seem to be happening in the volumes that we were hoping that would happen. So one area of sort of expanding their engagement would be to see how they can support startups, because MFIs typically avoid startup businesses, and that's I think a big piece of the job creation conversation, is how do we get more people to start up businesses that have good business opportunities. Another agenda for MFIs is not to consider only the quantity of jobs that they're creating, but also the quality of work. And typically when you see, if you're a loan officer and you're going out to visit MFI clients, you'll observe a lot of sort of deplorable working conditions in those businesses. But what do the loan officers do about it? What do they do when they see occupational safety and health risks, or when they see chemicals being stored in ways that are quite dangerous, or people working exorbitant hours? Is there any engagement that they have? So this is one of the things that we're trying to get banks and MFIs to embrace more actively, not necessarily out of a CSR agenda, social responsibility agenda, but because it makes sense for them as well. They want to find ways of reducing their clients' exposure to risks, is a way of reducing the bank's exposure to risks as well. I guess the two reactions are reflective of the missions of the financial institutions. So financial institutions that have a double bottom line, this really resonates with them because they are trying to achieve impact, and they recognize that they're not having sufficient impact. So they're looking for tools and resources and processes that enable them to have greater results with their customers. Those financial institutions that are more commercially oriented, that are not so committed to a double bottom line, are less receptive, I'd say, to a broader engagement with the market. And I think it's short-sighted. I think it's taking a short-term view. And so it's really sort of the commercial MFIs or banks that we're trying to get them to see that this makes sense for them. It doesn't have to be a significant extra cost for them to have a greater impact. So a big piece is equipping the field staff, frontline staff, loan officers, field agents, with the tools to know what to look for and what sort of actions to take if they identify certain circumstances. So child labor is certainly a huge issue for the ILO. So do loan officers understand what child labor is and what it means in their current situation? And so if they are seeing children working in the business, being able to have a conversation with the entrepreneur to see, why is the child working in the business, and is that something that could be rectified and addressed? We certainly want children to be going to school where possible, and when we see children working in the business, there may be a number of different drivers of child labor. It could be that the entrepreneur sees poor quality education available, and so they prefer the apprenticeship opportunities that might be available in the business. Or it may be that the household where the child comes from actually has experienced a shock and they lost a breadwinner is ill, and so they've sent the child to work in order to replace lost income. So trying to understand what's driving child labor is one of the important interventions to be able to see what sort of solutions might be possible. So the more we can equip field staff with a better understanding of the issues and tools to address those issues, I think will be more effective in enabling them to contribute to improving working conditions and the fundamental principles of worker rights. So the conditions in each country are set domestically. There is a global definition of child labor, but then it gets adapted to the local circumstances. So really the starting point is the Department of Labor in each country to be able to identify what really constitutes child labor. And you're right, light work is something that is possible for sort of children of a certain age, say below even 14, 15-year-olds, light work is acceptable. And so for the ILO, one of the biggest things we're trying to do is to prevent the worst forms of child labor, hazardous work or children in prostitution, children in really dire working conditions. So helping out in the family business and not missing school for children that are 14 years old is not a problem. So it's really being clear about what is and what is not acceptable and making sure that field staff have that information. That's right. So if you are sort of a daily laborer, in the old days you'd have to go and sort of go to the line where you stand for the construction site. And every day the van would pull up and say, I need 5 workers today. And the first 5 workers in line would get in the van and they'd go off to the construction site, as an example. Or similarly for other types of sort of daily workers who don't have formal employment, but are looking for ways of selling their labor. And now it becomes a lot easier because of platforms that help sort of link potential employers and potential workers so that people can quickly find odd jobs more easily, and that it may even have a payment mechanism built into it where the wages are paid. It may have a mechanism that even allows you to put savings aside out of the payments that you're getting. So these are, I think, exciting developments that hopefully will increase the employment opportunities for people who are really at the margins. Not that this is the ideal work scenario. It's certainly better than it was before these platforms existed, but we want to hopefully move toward that person being able to become formally employed at some point, and perhaps having these daily employment contracts with a variety of different employers helps them to sort of try out and demonstrate to employers that they are employable, so they can prove themselves. Whereas before, it was much harder, and you may have missed a lot of opportunities you didn't know were available because the linkages between the supply and demand of labor weren't so easily arranged. I think, my main message is really I want financial institutions to be thinking about different segments of the workforce that they can be serving. So it's not just about micro-entrepreneurs, but it's also about factory workers, migrant workers, the workers in the businesses that they are supporting. All of these different segments have different financial service needs that banks and MFIs could be serving if they were sort of recognizing and identifying this workforce. And so I think there's big market opportunities for financial institutions to serve different segments of the low-income labor force. And then the second sort of main message is not just thinking about the quantity, but also the quality of work, and how can financial institutions use their leverage and their relationship with workers to be able to improve working conditions over time. One of the key examples that we saw today was enabling workers to organize, even if it's not at a workplace environment, but the more that you can promote a collective solutions, the stronger voice that workers will have. And that's, I think, going to go a long way for them to have better working conditions, access to social protection, and better policies to support workers in the informal and hopefully formal economy. We want to create bridges out of the informal economy where possible.